I wanted to be able to attack and kill God, but I guess not.
Well, then you should really play the Persona games. I'm Emmy.
I'm Annie.
And this week we're playing Death of the Reprobate.
Um, Emmy, would you like to talk about the news?
Yes, let's talk about the news.
I actually, I, I first want to talk about some personal news, which is still video game related.
The most important news.
The most important news, which is that I have finally acquired the Playdate console that was gifted to me by my parents for Christmas. My dad, as everyone who has been listening knows, hates the fact that I love video games, yet still for some reason bankrolls this hobby sometimes. So
because he loves you.
Because he loves me.
Yeah.
Shout out to my dad, who grumbled the entire time he was going through the ordering process at this play date. But for those who don't know, I'm holding it right now so Emmy can see the little device. But it's a small square handheld gaming console. It has a D-pad, it has an A and a B button, and it also has a crank on the side. And a lot of the games make use of the crank as like part of the gameplay. In one of my favorite games that I've played on it so far, Casual Birder, you use the crank to focus your camera when you take pictures of birds.
That's cute. I think people, when the Playdate was first announced, people were like, they really love the crank.
Yeah.
Which people love to crank. People love to crank it.
They really do. And Emmy was laughing at me just earlier because while she was taking some notes on something, I was trying to beat a level in the one where you're late to a date every level and you have to run to go meet your date. And I was like cranking furiously because that's how you move. I did beat the level finally, by the way. I was getting chased by pigs, so I managed to evade
30 to 50 feral hogs.
Essentially. Like, essentially. I don't know exactly when this game was coded, so it's very possible that was an intentional reference. However, so far it's delightful. Everything about the graphic design within the console and without the console is like engaging and delightful. So the way it works is they have seasons of games, and every week it'll upload a couple more games automatically to the device, which gives you pretty much just enough time to play and maybe get tired of the previously uploaded games, and then all of a sudden you've got these new little gifts in there to try out for the next week. You can just go and download all of them all at once, but I don't want to do that. I think that it's nice to have a little bit of a new surprise that just comes to you each week.
I think it's sort of nice. It like forms a community in a way if everyone's playing the same games at the same time, which like happens when games release and stuff, but like a very intentional, like we're moving from this season to the next season is sort of like a nice way to form a community around it.
Because the season 1 games have been part of the Playdate for however many years it's existed, which is a few. It was a Kickstarted thing, but I'm really enjoying it. Also, the software developer kit is completely like open source on their website, so I'm excited to try that out and try to make something for the Playdate, a console that 4 other people own. So, but yes, anyway, also last thing is they sell very cute magnetic cases to go with it as well. I opted for the one that looks like a pizza box. It's my favorite thing that exists. It says delicious hot square on it. What about you? What news is on your horizon today?
Wanted to talk about the PlayStation Network outage, which affected many people and their attempts to play games over last weekend. And I experienced this organically and then learned about it later because I was, as I often am, playing Infinity Nikki. And as I've run out of things to do in Infinity Nikki, I am more and more likely to attempt to spend money in Infinity Nikki because I feel an urge to complete outfit sets that one can only get by gambling. And if you spend real money, you get to gamble more often. I'm trying not to do that. But I was like really in the depths of it the other day. I guess it was probably like last Saturday, and I went to go purchase a like $4 pack of something. So I would get whatever digital currency to exchange for another digital currency to exchange for a chance to get a digital outfit. And when I tried to purchase it again, it had a pop-up that was like clearly a PlayStation Store looking pop-up that was like, this item is like no longer available. And I was like, well, that sucks, but that's probably good because it kept me from spending money. And then the next day, I saw a news article about the PlayStation Network being down, but it felt kind of exciting to organically uncover this rather than like hearing about it and going to test it. Infinity Nikki still worked, even though it like requires a connection. The just purchases didn't work, which was sort of interesting because it sounded like other games that require a network connection were not working at all.
And that's how I found out about it. I wasn't playing any, but I am constantly scrolling through Blue Sky, so all of the video game-ish people that I follow had started complaining slash memeing on it. Then I read in the news after like looking it up after seeing everybody complaining that Sony basically said, sorry, that happened. It did happen, and we're sorry. Keep playing, and then didn't really give more of an explanation than that.
So there's three parts to this story that are meaningful. One is just that like it was down for a long time, which hasn't happened in a long time. That's frustrating, especially over a weekend when people are like trying to play. The next piece of it is it really drives home our reliance on network to play modern games, especially when like I, for example, I don't have a disc drive in my PS5. I have the discless one. And so the only way you can buy games is by having them digitally, and like you are so like beholden to network connectivity, the servers being up, et cetera, et cetera. It's placing a lot of trust in these corporations to maintain that. Third piece of it is in 2011. So like in 2011, there was a huge PlayStation Network outage during which a bunch of data was accessed by like an outside actor, right? So that's, I think, also why people immediately got nervous and are looking for a postmortem from PlayStation about this outage, because in the last big outage that they had, there was unauthorized data access and a lot of people's data was compromised.
Despite all that, it did save you from spending money on Infinity Nikki.
It did in the moment. In the moment, and then when it was available again, I still spent that money, so...
Okay. And well, that's it for the news. Emmy, can you please introduce us to this game?
Yeah. This week we played Death of the Reprobate. Death of the Reprobate is a short point-and-click adventure game where the art is comprised of Renaissance paintings. It's a very fun style. It's the third and final game in a series developed and published by London-based game developer Joe Richardson, who, as far as I understand, is the sole developer of these games. So the first of the series is Four Last Things, which was published in 2017 after a successful Kickstarter, and he actually started it in a game jam, and it won an award at the game jam, and then he started the Kickstarter to fund the complete game. And then he followed that up with The Procession to Calvary, which was published in April 2020. And all of these games, they're all like they all use Renaissance paintings as the basis for the art, and all of them have sort of this absurdist body humor that is really enhanced by its setting in the Renaissance paintings. It's frequently compared to Monty Python. So Death of the Reprobate, the third game in the series, is what we both played, and it's about 3 to 5 hours long. I was able to finish it in a single night. Annie, how did you feel about this game?
I had such a fun time playing it, and then the ending came along, and I felt a little bit like, oh, how did you feel about this game? That's my summary, and I would love to get into the details for sure. But how did you feel about this game? What's your summary?
I really loved this game. I thought it was very delightful. It has a really delightful style. It has a delightful sense of humor that really jives with me. I think I always really love a point-and-click adventure game. I loved that it was short. It's only, like I said, I finished it in a night. So I really appreciated that. I bought the other two games because they were on sale, but I haven't played them yet. And I'm sort of surprised that I wasn't familiar with these games until I was looking for Death of the Reprobate to come out, because it does just feel like it's so up my alley. And I think
Emmy.
the first two, were pretty, like, did well critically. So I'm sort of surprised that I wasn't familiar with these games already, but I'm looking forward to playing the first two. And just from, like, a quick scan of Steam reviews, it seems like the attitude is sort of that the first two are better. Like, people still definitely liked this game, but they thought it was the weakest of the three. At least that's what, like, the first, like, some of the top Steam reviews say.
Interesting.
But nonetheless, I really enjoyed it. I do think there's some moments where the humor becomes a little grating, but generally I found there were several moments where I laughed out loud playing this game, which is hard, I think, hard to do with a game, right? You, like, people will try to be funny in a game and it just comes off as cringe or exhausting, and I did genuinely laugh out loud multiple times while playing this game.
The humor was pretty great because it's definitely a very irreverent game. Comparing it to Monty Python makes sense because it has this historical setting, and then a lot of ahistorical language will pop up where you least expect it, or an ahistorical reference or item will pop up, and it's that bit of surprise, that profane surprise, that always got me. And it wasn't always profanity either that popped up and got me. I remember one of the moments where I laughed out loud was there was a character that was labeled. Every character has a title or ridiculous name that you can see when you go to click them. And there was a character that's named something like Youth Ready to Rabble Rouse. And he looked like he was in a stance that he was ready to fight. And so when I clicked him, I expected that we were going to fight. Your three options whenever you clicked a character was either to look at them and then you would get some kind of visual description. You could do something with your hand, and a lot of the time that ended up being something like you went and slapped them because you're playing a reprobate, so of course he'll just go and slap somebody or pinch them or something. Or you could talk to them, or sometimes the talking was actually just licking them or sticking out your tongue and blowing a raspberry at them. I get the irreverence. So I went to go fight him, and when you go to try to fight him or talk to him or anything like that, he immediately prances away and crashes through a wall. And did you do this, Emmy? Did you experience this person? Yeah. And so I laughed out loud then. I was not expecting that at all. I was ready to fight, and instead he danced away and crashed through a wall.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, subversion of expectations, both within the theme and also within the actual interactions within the game. The first thing I took a picture of was, like, almost immediately in the game when you're running into a guy who's trying to pretend that he caught some fish for his children. You ask him what he's using as bait, and he says a small, purpose-whittled wooden vagina effigy. And that made me laugh out loud, which is, like, so in that case, it actually does kind of accord with, like, the Renaissance. This sounds like a thing that someone would actually say, but it's very, very funny. And it just feels like stuff that, like, comes out of nowhere is, like, what really made me laugh. I feel like I was, like, sputtering a lot of the time.
Right. I don't know if we talked about the plot premise of the game, which is very simple, which is you play as a reprobate, a leader who sucks. He punishes people, he carouses, he drinks, etc. He's a sinner. His father is dying. His rich father is dying. And so he goes to visit his wealthy father who is dying, expecting to be named his heir, inherit the wealth, etc. But his dying father says, "No, you're a reprobate. You cannot have my wealth, riches, etc. until you prove yourself worthy." And when the reprobate is like, "But you've done a lot of bad stuff too," the father is like, "Yeah, true. Who cares? You still have to go do 7 good deeds before I will give you my money before I die." So the reprobate says, "Sure. So it's you wandering around the town trying to find 7 people to help so that you can do 7 good deeds and then go back to your dying father and say, 'I'm a good person now. I deserve your wealth.'" So actually the fisherman is is the first person you encounter who needs help.
I think we should do a broad spoiler warning for this game, because I think it's going to be challenging to talk about the moments that we really liked without getting to spoilers, because it is such a short game. So if you really want to go play it and you don't want to be spoiled, especially there's some twists that could be big spoilers for you. So if you want to, pause, go play it for 5 hours and come back and listen, now might be a good time to do so. I'm speaking slowly, so you have the opportunity to pause.
Yeah, at any time now. Anytime now. Okay.
I think we're good.
Anyway, now that all the people who care about spoilers are gone, we can talk about some spoilers. So, as you go around and do your good deeds, you run into a lot of never-do-wells. Everyone, it seems, is sinning around this town, I feel. Which means it's kind of fun. It's clearly like a very Christian society that it portrays, and then it's also full of a lot of people just throwing all of those values out the window, which is also part of the humor.
It is. It made me think back to our conversation about Drova and how having choices in a game where your choices matter, I struggle to be a bad person. And we talked about like, what would it look like for a game to make me feel okay with being bad? This is that game. This game totally makes me feel like I can be bad. It's kind of your only option, even though you are sent out on this quest to like help people. Like, you're still being a shithead the entire time.
Very true.
But it's funny, and like you said, like, everyone is bad, but it doesn't feel bad in the sense of, like, the world is bleak and depressing and garbage and I'm contributing to making it worse. It's like, no, you're like, I think because the character is less personalized, you're not like, oh, this is my character that I named and picked out their clothing and they're like, maybe a representation of me. Instead, it's like the itinerant son of a leader who is, as his father says, you have sold the majority of our publicly owned infrastructure to your old school chums. Like, that has already happened. I have no control over the fact that he's like a little monster man. And I found that gave me a lot of freedom to, like, yes, be a shithead, slap everyone that I pass. Although sometimes I would forget that I had the 3 options. I would get into a mode where I was only talking. One of the things that you need to do is find this woman a husband who matches her clothing, and she's like, he's in the woods. His name is Jasper. And I'm like, I cannot figure out how to get this man back. And then I realized it was because I never tried to touch him. Oh, and then I did, and you just pick him up and carry him.
Yeah, I didn't think that picking him up would happen when I clicked the touching option. So I was pleasantly surprised to find that I did just pick him up and bring him over to the women, and it worked out just fine.
It's like both frustrating and enjoyable in this game, where you do get into a mode of like, you're trying to think logically through trying to do it in that point and click adventure game of like, what do I need to do with this character to accomplish the task? And ultimately, it's like some bullshit that you're like, I did not expect that to work. I didn't think that, which is like true of most adventure games, right? You're like, this is some bullshit and doesn't necessarily make logical sense. But I appreciated it. Although I did find myself, I'm curious if you went to like the hint man.
Yes, I want to talk about him. So in the game, there is a soothsayer. I actually wrote down his name because, like I said, a lot of these characters have utterly ridiculous names that are meant to make you laugh. The soothsayer in the game is a intentionally Orientalist character. Like, he's taken from a painting of Muslim, like Ottomans, essentially. And then when you talk to him about the turban he's wearing, it calls that out in a very meta way. But the soothsayer is named Barthélemy Jutsip, and you can ask him for help on any of the quests. And he warns you right off the bat that he is going to tell you very directly what to do. He's not going to beat around the bush because he doesn't have that kind of time. So if you ask him, how do I find this woman's potential husband? He will just tell you straight up, he's in the woods, go pick him up and bring him to her. There were 2 quests that I consciously talked to him about because I was struggling so much. There's one quest where you need to learn the names of 10 birds around town in order to help a hunter shoot the birds. I could not find the 10th bird. I was missing a bird. The soothsayer doesn't help you with that because all he tells you is go find the birds. And I was missing a bird. So I had to wander around by myself anyway. The other time I consulted him was there was a quest where a carpenter's babies were crying and he wanted them to stop. And in order to stop one of the babies from crying, they needed a meal that would satisfy all of their picky eating rules. And the carpenter's wife was a lot more helpful than the carpenter in telling you the rules. But once I knew the rules, I was missing some steps in order to make the food appropriate for the baby. And I actually, after I consulted the soothsayer, it turns out I had stumbled upon the right process. I just hadn't included the correct ingredients in that process. Emmy, would you like to elaborate on that process?
Yes. Yes. Well, so first of all, I want to mention I did not struggle with the birds because I yelled at every single bird along the way. I was like, "Ooh, a new
So did
bird to yell
I.
at."
Yeah, before you unlock the ability to identify and learn about the birds, you do walk by like a lot of birds. And
Yeah.
your main option, you can either yell at them, you can clap. That's what happens when you
Yeah.
choose the touching option, and then the bird flies away, but then it comes back. So I also yelled at all the birds. I just forgot about one. Maybe this is
Yeah.
what I get for playing it in several sittings rather than just in the one.
Yeah, I just played it all through one so I could see how you forget. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
that was also one of the baby needing food to eat was
Mm-hmm.
also something that I had to go to the soothsayer to find out about, and it was mostly because there's like one more step than most things where
Mm-hmm.
I did stumble upon like, oh, like you can get a bucket, put the bucket in front of some water or behind a cow's ass, and then if you slap the cow will shit in the bucket, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can give the bucket of shit to the child, and
Yes.
it will be like, oh, it's not shit, it's chocolate milkshake, and to which the mother says he can't have anything made of cocoa.
The rules actually for the baby, things it would eat, nothing green or blue, nothing to chew, nothing with a logo on it. I couldn't find anything with a logo on it to
I
feed
thought
the
that was,
baby
I
and
think it
get
was
that
just a
wrong.
joke.
Well, it was a joke, but I was like,
It was a
does this
joke
go?
aimed at my mother specifically.
I just wanted to know if the joke went further. You know, if I could
Yeah.
find a logo item like a Mountain Dew and try to give it to this baby.
Yeah, I didn't
Unfortunately,
see
no.
one.
And yes, no cocoa. No logos, no cocoa. So eventually you can this was a joke I really enjoyed. There is a food merchant in the town square that you can go to, and that's where you go to try to get some ingredients of food to give to this baby. And you don't have any money in this game. So your options when you talk to this merchant are to ask him to give you stuff for free, and he says no, of course. And then your other option is to threaten him with violence. It works immediately if you
Yeah,
threaten him
he's
with
like,
violence.
you ask him, like, you don't even threaten him with violence immediately. You're like, what if I threatened you with violence? And he says, oh, well, yeah, that would work. And then you're like, okay, give me some food. And he's like, well, you have to threaten me with violence first.
Yeah, so the items he has on offer are like a very large courgette, which is funny to me. That's so British. It's a gourd, it's a squash, whatever. And pears and strawberries. And the pears don't work because, first off, it'd have to be chewed. Second, it's green. The courgette, also green. Strawberries, if you try to feed that to the baby, the mother's like, well, if you didn't have to chew it, that would work. And I was really part of the reason I was stuck is because I was thinking like, can't I just chew the strawberries and spit them into this
Yeah,
baby's
I
mouth?
was trying to give it to a bird to chew.
Oh, yeah, and then that didn't work. So yeah, it turns out what you have to do is feed the strawberries to feed the strawberries to the cow and then put the bucket under the cow's ass and then slap its ass and then it will shit a strawberry milkshake into the bucket, which the baby happily slurps up and then it stops crying.
Which is upsetting. That is
Yeah,
the one
very
part of the
upsetting.
game I was like, I don't like this.
Yes. So I actually did consult the soothsayer on that. And then I also, the main thing that I just needed more information from them on was a later quest where the town crazy woman, as they call her, is trying to turn her well into a hot tub. And she says, just do it with magic. And so you need to get a magic book from the wizard, but the wizard doesn't want to let you have it. So you have to lure the wizard out of his house and get him to stay in the tavern while you steal the book. And I didn't figure that out. I'm not smart enough. And it turns out actually you could either use the very large courgette squash, or a very large cauliflower that you pick up outside the wizard's house to stop up his
Oh.
chimney. Oh,
Yeah,
did you
I
not pick up the
realized.
cauliflower?
No, I did pick up the cauliflower, but I just realized that it never got used
Oh,
because I
yeah,
used the
the
melon.
courgette.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the options. I did like there were a couple of situations like that where you could pick one ridiculous item or another to complete the task, and it would still work out. The one that I
Yeah.
didn't actually mean to ask them about, I accidentally clicked and then just kind of continued the conversation because I was already there. There's a second set of babies that you need to quiet, and they'll only be quiet if they have their swaddling clothes, their
Mm-hmm.
blankets. And unfortunately, their father gave them away, and the degens in the tavern have them. And then the degens in the tavern will only give them to you if you play their little gambling game where they're trying to guess what numbers these dice will be. And so I accidentally read about that before I even tried. And normally I wouldn't even consult a guide if I haven't already tried it myself. So, Emmy, how did you complete that puzzle?
Yeah, so the first thing I struggled with on that puzzle was that part of the rules is that you have to add like Colin's number and someone else's number. And they were like, "Oh, there are pictures of them in the
Mm-hmm.
art gallery. You can go see which one is which." And I was like trying to figure out what's the number. I was like, "Is it the number of buttons that they have buttoned in the painting? Is it something to do with the date?" And that wasn't working. So then I had to go ask the soothsayer and just realized that I wasn't paying enough attention to the slight change in the characters during the game where they show a number on their fingers, like live in the
Oh.
tavern and not in the painting. But so I did actually play the game. Another option is you can just keep questioning the game and they'll be like, okay, you're right,
Yeah, I
which
was
is
gonna
very funny to
say,
me.
that was the perfect encapsulation of the game's humor to me. You don't have to do any of that shit. You don't have to work for it. If you complain loudly enough whenever they try to get you to play their game, if you say, wait, why are you asking me that? Wait, how am I supposed to know what dice will fall as anyway? Why does anybody know this? Seems kind of rigged. Eventually they're like, fine, just take the stuff and go. And that's what the
Yeah.
soothsayer told me to do. That those are his main instructions, really. So once I got to the tavern, I was like, guess I'll just question them. And they handed me the stuff.
Yeah, see, I played the game. You guess them correctly. The dice still don't fall that way. And then
Oh.
the degens are like, haha, we just wanted to see if you would do it. And then you have to like yell at them again and then they give it to you,
I
which
love
I thought
that.
was very, very funny.
Uh-huh.
Like I do love sort of the game design of just being like, you stupid fuck.
Yeah. I do, in a way, I appreciate that it says, haha, why did you do that? Though, in a way, the game encourages you to, so I don't always love a game that makes fun of you or punishes you for doing what it encourages you to do. It's kind of
Yeah, I'm
like
doing what you told me to do.
it's a Lucy with the football situation to me.
Yeah.
But if it happens over and over again, then it is on you. So, uh, yeah, that was how I completed that puzzle. And then I did need real help with the wizard, but figured that out eventually as well.
Part of the struggle is also knowing what's available to click. And there is actually an affordance for this that's built in. I just kept forgetting about it, where
Oh,
you
I
can
used it all the time.
hit like a hotkey to highlight what was clickable. And I just kept forgetting to do it. And I think that's what sometimes slowed me down is like, oh, I can click the chimney to put a gourd in it
Mm-hmm.
um, until being like directed there. And I think that if I had used the affordance that showed where everything was that was clickable, it would have been I would have been consulting the soothsayer left often.
True. I did use that a bunch actually, and I still missed stuff. So maybe if you're a dumbass like me, it wouldn't have helped anyway. But I also wanted to ask you, so there were a few items and things I had left over at the end where I actually went back and played again to see if I'd missed
Mm.
something and still couldn't find whether there was a purpose other than being enjoyable to experience. Two items that I observed but then couldn't figure out if there was something I was missing about them is first the doll's house. There's this 9-room dollhouse in the carpenter's home. Do you remember this? It's smack dab in
Oh,
the middle.
that feels like you should be able to interact with it.
So you can interact with it in that you click
Oh.
it and then you can zoom in on every room of the doll house, but then there's nothing else to do, it seems, with it. And I was waiting for it to tie in to something.
It did feel like it would be a puzzle of some
Yeah.
kind, but it isn't. This game feels like it does explicitly have the theme of this is the last game in this series. I'm done with this shit. Like, that is explicitly the vibe of this game. And so sometimes it feels like things where, like, for example, you could just talk the hooligans out of playing their games, or like you don't actually have to have money to get the food. It feels like things that were set up to potentially be more complicated and then the developer just gave up on, which I think is intentional, right? Like, it's sort of funny, but that's the general feeling, and I wonder if it's associated with this attitude of like, I'm not making another one of these games. I'm done.
I do want to put a pin in that vibe because it was not a vibe that I picked up on, or rather did not seem expressed to me until the very end. And that is part of my, feeling about it. But that is also because I don't know the developer or the backstory of the previous games that well. So maybe if I'd been more educated coming in, I would have known.
Do we want to talk about the ending twist? Did you see it coming?
Yes and no. So the ending twist. Well, Emmy, I feel like I should hand this one to you to describe.
Yeah, so it's revealed that your 7 good deeds were actually representative of the 7 deadly sins instead, which I found very funny. And I'm surprised that I didn't see it coming, just because 7 is such a specific number. But I think I just wasn't in, even though it tells you like, oh, God will point out the things that you need to do. And there is literally a Jesus figure like holding a sign pointing at the people to help. So even though it does explicitly invoke the religious idea, I think I just wasn't in a religious mode of like, oh, 7.
Well, if it helps, which I guess it doesn't, there are also 7 graces. So there are 7 is a number in that for every counterpoint of the 7 sins, there are also 7 virtues. So they could have been virtues too. Could have been nice, but that's not this type of game. I also got a kick out of the literal Jesus that was there pointing the way, because if you talk to him, he says, pretend I'm not here. And then your Uncle Vlad in the end reveals that literally was a dude dressed as Jesus. It was Archibald up to shenanigans again in town. So even if he was pointing the way, it wasn't exactly giving God's blessing about it.
So that's the first twist, right? Is revealing that you've committed 7 deadly sins, and then your father dies. You have a funeral procession to bring him through the woods, and you have the opportunity to say something to him, say goodbye. I'm curious what you chose to say goodbye.
So I did both because I played the ending twice, and at least from what I saw, it didn't make a difference. But basically, you can either tell him, I miss you, Dad, goodbye, rest in peace, or you can say, rot in hell, old man. You can do either one.
Yeah.
And then you place
the
flowers on his grave. Yeah. Yeah, that's what you chose. I chose the nice one at first. I was like, I'm going to be the better man for once.
Yeah. I think because this game does enable you to, like, be a guilt-free bad person, I was like, this is what this character would say. He would say, rotten hell, old man. He's not going to repent in any way.
And so then you place your flowers, you can pray at his grave, and then it pans up onto a beautiful celestial sky. Chopin starts to play, specifically his Nocturne number 2 in E flat major, opus 9, number 2, begins to play, and the end appears on the screen.
Yes, and then God comes down from the heavens and says, I'm not leaving the door open for another one of these games, so we're going to destroy the world. We're going to begin the apocalypse. And so you go throughout the world. You have to kill all of the birds, because then locusts can come and the birds won't eat the locusts. And then you have to raise the dead. I think there's one that I'm missing there.
Yes.
I'm not a Catholic kid, so I don't know the apocalypse steps as well as Annie might know them.
Yes. So there is even, while the Chopin is playing, there's a literal record scratch, and then Vivaldi's Summer begins to play instead. I looked that up to make sure that I got that right. Oh yeah, side note, one of the aesthetic lovely things about this game is that all the music is diegetic, in that in every scene he has inserted some painted musicians, and if you click them, it tells you what they're playing, which is really great. Like, he clearly knows his art and music stuff from those few hundred years that he's chosen. But yes, I know it was Vivaldi's Summer playing because once God tells you to initiate the apocalypse, he has some fiddling skeletons follow you around the entire time. And when you click them, it tells you what they're playing. So, yes, first he orders you to take the quote, cute little gun that you picked up during one of the good deeds, and he loads it with bullets and he tells you to kill every bird in town so that the locusts can get started. After that, he tells you to light everything on fire and he hands you a Molotov cocktail to throw into the gallery. And then once that's done, he tells you to raise the dead. And then, Emmy, once you raise the dead, what happens?
Then once you raise the dead, the devil comes down and he has like a dog face and like a dog face on his belly. And he says, "I'ma get ya." And then it zooms in on the belly and it says, "He's a getcha!" And then you have to run away from the devil, which is a really weird interaction in a point and click game because you just start repeatedly clicking on the scene. And it's like in slow motion going through the town and all of the chaos that you've
Yeah, it's kind of
found.
beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And then I kept fucking dying because I forgot about the mechanic where you can show all of the clickable things. And so I was like, how do I get away from the devil? You have to dive into a pit and die.
Hieronymus Bosch pit. There's actually a lot of Bosch, which I enjoyed as well in the paintings and in the characters. And yes, you jump into hell, then you die. Though you can, there's the two deaths, right? Either you can have the devil eat you, which that happened a lot to me because I wanted to interact with the devil. So just so you know, if you click the devil and then you choose like the speaking option, you blow a raspberry at him, and every time it lasts long enough for the devil to catch you and eat you. So that's what you get for interacting.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do first, was like get past him or talk to him in some way, and then he gets you. But then if you jump down the pit, then you get like the actual ending. Because if you die, you just like you restart, so it's clearly not the actual end. So if you dive into the pit, you get the actual end where it's a reflection of the beginning. In the beginning, you're deciding what punishment to give to different, or like how to resolve the peasants. What is that called when you're like a royalty figure is receiving complaints?
I'm not sure what it's called, but basically he's had a bunch of criminals brought forth to him and he decides on their punishments, whether they have to be in the stocks, whether they have to be eaten alive, various things. Yes. So in the beginning, you as the reprobate sit on a throne and you dole out these punishments, and that's something that your father castigates you for when you first show up in town. So in the very end, it's God in that place, and the reprobate himself is brought before him. He says, "LMAO, choose your punishment." And then the very, very end of the game is you, the reprobate, being punished in the way you chose. I'm curious to know what you chose, but in the way you chose, and then the only option you have to do is scream while the credits roll. So you can click and scream until it's over.
I think I chose him like being fried in a pan. Something like
by
that.
a pregnant blue woman.
Yes.
That's what I chose as well. Yes.
But you get to see what all the other punishments would be if you like click around.
I am curious to know, throughout this ending sequence, once God has descended, did you interact with God very much?
Yeah, I interacted with him a fair amount, but I don't remember the details of what he said because it has been like a few weeks since I played this game.
Right. I played it a little more recently. I was also playing a little bit before recording to refresh myself and to take down some quotes. So here's where I come in with my feeling about the ending, because it had a lot of commentary about creator and their art and the way the player in this case would experience it versus how the creator is experiencing it. And I don't know if I totally agree, though I do understand that it's coming from a place of Joe Richardson was sick of this shit and wanted to end this particular phase of his game making career, it seems. So let's go back a second. There's some commentary on art and the artist and creating throughout the game with the NPCs that you interact with. Two of them that I think are the most pivotal are the Weaver and the Painter.
Yes.
Who we talked a bit about. Emmy, can you describe the Weaver and the Painter?
Yes. So the weaver and the painter. The weaver is someone that you have to get something from to help a pair of fornicating
Yes.
individuals be able to fist each other in public. So you have
Yes.
to get them a skirt from the weaver. But when you interact with the weaver and you ask him how business is going, he says, he says bad,
He says
right?
bad. And you're like, I'm
Yes.
sorry to hear that. And he says, no, this is great. The fact that business is bad means that I'm ever more motivated to improve my art to be successful. So then the next time you can
Yes.
interact with him and you ask, how's business going again? They say, still bad. You say, congratulations. The painter, on the other hand, is in a different situation.
Yeah, so the painter, on the other hand, says business is good, and you say, "Oh, congratulations," and he says, "No, that's a bad thing," because I'm like now I'm comfortable and I'm not being driven to create better art.
Mm-hmm. And then also, basically, the painter says, "No, I'm comfortable now. I'm not being challenged to succeed and evolve my art." And he also says it's so easy to keep doing the commercial thing that has made me popular that I'm not feeling the need to evolve or change or anything my art. So of course, when you ask him how's business going, he says still good, and you say you're sorry to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So that was the first like blip about art stuff. Then in the gallery, there was a little bit of you watch these monkeys painting. There are monkeys doing paintings, and you can tell them how to change things. Uh, and I guess that's probably often how an artist, especially a small one, feels about people reviewing their game. So apologies for telling the monkeys to to do things a certain way. So those were, I guess, the first way that I might have been able to see in the game that this was a like I'm done with this shit vibe. Do you have any other things earlier in the game that pointed to that I might have missed?
I do feel like there's a moment towards the beginning of the game that's like, this is
Mm.
the last one, but I can't
Oh,
remember explicitly when that happens, and then it's described very very explicitly by the god character at the end, which
yes,
is
in the
clearly
end.
a stand-in for the developer.
So, how I felt about that when God descended and said, I want this to be over, so I'm burning it down. It was immediately more meta than it had ever been in a way
Yeah.
that felt very, very specific and personal. And I was a little taken aback because it felt actually quite condescending to a player. It felt in a way that it was insulting us for even enjoying this and wanting more, if that makes
Mm.
sense. And most of that came from not the appearance of God itself and the very ending, but from further interactions with God, which were pleasing to me as a player in a way that my actions were anticipated. And I enjoyed that because that's good game design to anticipate my action and build in a reaction to it. But those reactions were also, in a way, saying, no, this is not your experience, this is my experience. And
Mm.
that's maybe a game design philosophy thing where we might have differences. So I asked how much you interacted with God because I wanted to talk about a little bit of those interactions that can happen at the end of the game.
Yes, I did very much get that sense of like, it's my decision, I am destroying the world, it is my world,
Mm-hmm.
is the vibe that is coming off.
Exactly. So at the end, God says to you, the reprobate, this is supposed to be a thrilling, action packed denouement. I actually don't know how to say that word, and I shouldn't
To
have tried to say it. So that's where it starts to get meta when God descends and says this. And in the end of the game, when you're given a loaded gun, you have to go kill the birds. Though I have a question. Did you try pointing the gun at anything else?
Hmm. I don't think I did.
You should have.
I may have like shot someone in the leg or
Really?
something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. What I did immediately was shoot Uncle Vlad at the funeral because I disliked him and, well, I have a gun now. God says, hey, birds only when you do that.
Okay, I did try to do something like that because I remember God saying birds only.
So I wonder who else is actually killable, or if that was only allowable because it was the first thing I tried to do. So, did you try turning the gun on God?
I did not. I really wish that I was that creative of a game player.
I turned the gun on God. I tried to shoot God. If you do, he says, don't even think about aiming that thing at me. This isn't a multiple endings situation. There's only one way out of this mess. Which made me mad. I wanted to be able to attack and kill God, but I guess not.
Well, then you should really play the Persona games.
Oh, don't you worry. I will. And I have. So I was doing all of this to try to prevent killing the birds, and then I had to anyway. So, but the other thing I did as a delay tactic was at the end of the game, you have a bunch of stuff in your inventory, which either you used for a puzzle or you didn't. There's one item, the meat pie, that I had no purpose for whatsoever. So I gave that to God. Is that ringing a bell? Did you happen to try to give that to God, or was it somebody else you
I
gave
think
it to?
I might have tried to put the meat pie on my father's like funeral slab.
Uh-huh. Did it work?
I don't remember. I wish that I had revisited this before we talked, because I thought that I was like, oh, I have such a clear memory of this game, and now I'm not remembering the nitty-gritty of the things I did.
That's okay. I'm now wishing I'd put the meat pie instead of the like bouquet on him, but I had this meat pie left over, so I handed that to God. And he got mad. He said, don't you dare try to use your unnecessary leftover interview items on me. Confiscated, in all caps. Now focus, you fool. And then he takes all the extra stuff out of your inventory, not just the thing that you gave him. So if you do that, all that's left in your inventory at that point is a to-do list that the game automatically updates with quests and the gun. So that was very abrupt. No player agency, essentially, in a way.
It's interesting from like a developer perspective, I think, because if I was thinking like a developer, just in terms of a software developer trying to manage edge cases, that absolutely is something I would have come up with. I would be like, okay, what are all of the items that could possibly be in your inventory? What are all of the possible interactions? And now I have to account for every single one of them, and that's how I manage basically error handling. But it's sort of interesting. It's like an interesting self-reflection that I don't tend to do that in games nearly as much, like in terms of brute forcing of like, I want to cover all of these things, or I wonder what happens here. I think I'm very susceptible to being guided through an experience.
So since God said, go kill the birds, you were like, okay, that's what I'm doing.
I was like,
now.
That's very funny. I am going to kill the birds.
For me, I mean, we've talked before about my tendency with games is to be presented with a main quest and then say, cool, I'm going to do literally anything else for as long as I can before continuing on the main quest. So that was what I was doing here. And then finally after this, for me, the next thing to happen is after you've killed all the birds, you're given the Molotov cocktail. And he says, when he does that, God says, go throw it somewhere where it'll cause the most damage. So you go to the next area. For you, presumably the player, to look for where to throw it to cause the most damage. However, you don't really get that choice. This happens no matter what you do. God actually says, okay, we're in the town square. Now throw it in the gallery. That's where it'll do the most damage. And then the reprobate says, whoa, you could have given me a second to figure that out myself. And then God says, oh, you poor little baby. Did I rob you of an opportunity to feel clever? Are you really still searching for the fabled Eureka moment? Haha, grow up. It's not 1994. You're 39 years old, for Christ's sake. If the puzzle difficulty is pitched just right, that's my triumph, not yours. Now throw the flipping explosive, you pitiful snail. And then the protag says, yes, Papa, with a little sad face emoji, and the only thing you can do next is throw the cocktail. And in that moment, I was really sitting there like, oh, this is really specific. The developer is both the reprobate in a self-insert and God telling himself these things. This game is both God, the developer's triumph, and whoever is in this position is 39 years old. So it's also the developer. And I did feel like a pitiful snail in that moment saying, yes, Papa, throwing the Molotov cocktail into the gallery. but I also wondered what the purpose of an interactive video game is without that choice, or rather if it's going to yell at you for making choices in this
Hmm.
scenario where the game and the humor and everything was built on making those choices.
It didn't bother me as much as I think it bothered you.
Yeah,
I
it
found
bothered
it
me.
like a very funny. I found it a very funny turn and like
Mm,
a subversion of the typical expectations of a point and click adventure game where it's
mm,
like breaking that fourth wall and the expectations that the player has throughout. And I think this is also maybe coming from the distinction of I played it in one sitting and you played it in multiple. So
mm,
at that point, I was like ready for the game to end because I had been sitting and playing it on my couch for like 4 hours.
mm.
So I think I was like, I'm down to be like railroaded through this thing and just like a passive participant in this predetermined God's plan, because I think that is also very thematic, right? So it feels like in line with that theme, right, of like predetermination and religious railroading.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it fit for me. It like felt within it felt like it was within this subversion, and fit with this kind of attitude of um I'm over it, like we're done. And I think it works for me too because you think the game is, because it explicitly says the end, right? So you've finished, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're actually getting more bonus game, but it's going to be on his terms. And I
Mm.
think that that's interesting.
I like the way you put that. I guess I probably also would have been disappointed if it ended where the end comes in. I didn't expect that to be the real end because it was too pat and nice. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that then bothered me was the attitude of I'm burning this down and taking you with me, which is not the way I look at games in general.
Mm.
But that doesn't mean that this is how this maker makes every game. And it did also make me laugh quite a lot, even in that ending sequence. I definitely think everybody should play and experience this game regardless. Although it is an extremely irreverent game, so I figure it's probably not for everybody. So I'm sitting here, I guess, saying, yes, Papa, I will play the game the way you want me to.
Yeah. I yeah, I think that's interesting. I think I
Yeah.
liked it. It's probably because of, for the same reason that I felt some degree of release from the responsibility of my own actions in terms of being a bad character, like making bad choices, because it feels like that's sort of the only option you have. It doesn't bother me as much when it's like now you like can't make good, you can't be like I'm going to kill God to save the birds.
Hmm.
It that fits in like the experience I was having where it was like, well, my only choice is to fulfill this role of being a reprobate.
Yeah. It's not like I even wanted a choice to do good things. I mostly didn't want to kill the birds, which I guess is a quote unquote good thing. But you can also read it as a weaselly thing for me to
Mm-hmm.
say, I mean, sure, like the birds have to die to end this game, but do I have to be the one to do it?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I felt in the end that it was the writer's way of projecting their anxieties about creation and the success or not of this particular series of games onto the player in a way they hadn't asked for. But on the other hand, I understand that all art, in a way, is the creator projecting anxieties or preoccupations they have onto an audience, and then the audience participates in that in one way or another. Maybe I was bothered because I was being asked to participate in a philosophy I didn't agree with necessarily, and
Mm.
there were no choices to not participate in a different way. Though my desire to escape those choices was anticipated in a way that I found pleasing.
Well, I guess what's the ultimate way of like disengaging or like having, even if you're doing something that's another option that fits within the game world, it still is ultimately the developer's ability to provide those options. And so in that
True.
way, it's still like within the developer's purview of what you can and can't do. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's not that frustrating because even when even games that are really good at like letting you break them are intentionally letting you break them, and they're just doing a really good job of obfuscation. Um, Although we are both very much like death of the author type people, right? Of
Hmm.
like art is a constructionist interaction between the viewer and the product of art.
To an extent. The message is so clear and personal in this one that I don't know if I'm necessarily separating the author from it.
Right, but in terms of outlook generally on art and like what we think art can be.
Oh, yeah, true. Yes, there. So I guess the only way to really push against what the creator, especially of a game, would want you to do or say in that game outside of the parameters they've prescribed is to simply turn it off. I guess in summary, for Death of the Reprobate, we both say play it
Yeah,
and then debate
certainly
your
play it.
friends. Certainly play it and then debate your friends on its artistic philosophies afterward. Though I'm
Yeah.
not very curious about the others. I want to play the other games, the first two.
Yeah, I definitely want to play the other games, especially considering people who I think maybe also were sort of bothered by this feeling of like he's forcing me to participate in tearing it all down. I'm curious to play the other games that aren't suffused with this sort of like this is the last one. I'm warning you. Yeah, I think that wraps up our thoughts on that. Let's talk about upcoming games.
Let's please. One of the games I wanted to mention is actually out already. It just came out and it's called Keep Driving. It's a management RPG about making your way through a procedurally generated pixel art open world. You're driving a car, you can pitch up hitchhikers, you can customize and repair your car as you go. I was really excited for this one. I love the art style. I also like the idea of it mostly being road trip based. And it is just kind of a side scroller as well. So I'm buying it and I will be playing it. Maybe we'll talk about it later, but just wanted to point out that one's out. Keep driving.
Nice. Yeah, you have had your eye on that for a while.
Hmm.
Also on my list is a mobile game, Good Coffee, Great Coffee. Although, so I'll say this is by the same developers as you might imagine of Good Pizza, Great Pizza. Tap Blaze is the developer. And I really like Good Pizza, Great Pizza. It's also a mobile game, although I want to say that you can get it on Switch. And maybe on Steam. I have to verify that, but I know that it's not just on mobile. I think it started on mobile. And it just is like a really nice little like restaurant management sim where you're making pizza is Good Pizza, Great Pizza. And it just has a really nice style to it that I enjoy. It's sort of illustrated. And so they're making a follow-up to that called Good Coffee, Great Coffee, which I hope will be like a very similar mechanics, and I'm looking forward to playing it. I'll probably play it on Apple Arcade, since it's a nice game on your phone. But I don't know, if it came to Switch, I think that would be really nice too.
I've
Just a
never
very
played
like
either.
zen. Yeah, you should check it out. It's really just if you're looking for that type of like cooking restaurant management sim, where you get orders, you make their order, you earn money, you can upgrade your restaurant.
I'm so thankful I've never worked in a pizza place or as a barista for real, because I feel like that would just utterly ruin the fun of cooking games. Like my younger sister worked in a pizza place throughout high school, and I'm sure that she'd only be thinking of her boss. like
Yeah.
like pressuring them to work faster the entire time.
I would say that about a Build-A-Bear sim, but I actually had a great time when I worked at Build-A-Bear. So
So if they made a work at Build-A-Bear sim, you'd happily play.
yeah, I'd be fine with it. I'd be like, this is great because I don't actually have to physically feel the heat of the stuffing machine and like sweat.
Was it hot? Is the stuffing machine hot?
If you're using it a lot, it like there's like a big metal spike basically where the stuffing comes out, and if you're sitting there, you have like a lot of people coming in, and you're just sitting there. It becomes really, it's like really hot, and the metal spike for the stuffing will become like hot to the touch.
I don't know how that makes me feel to know. Weird. I'll just settle on weird.
Yeah. Okay, another one that I wanted to talk about is Mycelium Heaven, which is a puzzle game that is coming out on February 28th, which is a puzzle game where you play as mushrooms. You're trying to spread across these grids to consume zombies. It's also got a really nice visual style, and I just think the idea of playing as mushrooms trying to spread is like a really fun and novel idea.
The game that I wanted to talk about is a bit far off, and it's also not indie. It's by a bigger developer, or rather a well-known one. But my like high school self is so happy to know that Fantasy Life for the 3DS is finally getting its sequel. It was put off so many times throughout the past years. It's called Fantasy Life I. It is with the subtitle "The Girl Who Steals Time." It's going to be on like everything cross-platform. It's by Level 5, who also does the Professor Layton games, which I also love deeply. And I mean, you never played Fantasy Life for 3DS, did you?
No, but I was just looking it up, and it looks really cute, and it does look like the Professor Layton games. Like
It
it's got a similar
does.
style.
It's so cute. I think you would actually really love Fantasy Life if you ever played it.
It does seem
And
like the type of thing I would really like.
yeah, no, you would really like it. So I think that please play Fantasy Life I when it pops up, because I will. And it's a lot of like what the first game was based on is you're in this like world adventuring, and you have a bunch of like job subclasses that you can swap between. And a lot of the actual gameplay, I remember I got a little tired of it as time went on, because it was mostly like button pressing mini games to level up or make materials that you could craft with. But there were also so many side quests and cute characters and different worlds you could visit with different aesthetics that that provided you with all these job subclasses and stuff, that I was still enchanted and played it for a really long time. So yeah, I'm really excited that there's finally a new installment after so long, and that it seems to involve time travel. So anyway, I'm in. I'm so excited.
I can't wait to get a job as a time traveling
Me too.
something.
Can't wait to be employed. I do think it's funny that I, despite, like working for a living and having had like, office jobs I did not like in the past, as soon as there's a game where the entire mechanic is you have a job, I'm like, I'm in. Just take me away.
I think it's because in a video game you get the like achievement feeling of completing tasks, and then the tasks are gamified, and then in real life the tasks are never ending and
Mm-hmm.
abstract. So I think that's a good time as any to wrap things up. So thanks for listening, and until next time.
Until next time.